Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, as East African leaders vow to do what they can to bring warring sides in South Sudan's ongoing civil war to the negotiation table once again, we head behind rebel lines for the second report in our correspondent special on the country's armed crisis. Also, I'm sorry. In South Africa, the former leader of the country's top opposition party apologises unreservedly for a controversial tweet in which he praised some aspects of colonialism. Helen Zille also steps back from all leadership roles in the DA. And Sudan steps up border patrols to head off the growing number of Eritreans trying to make it across. Many hope to risk a journey onto Europe, but put themselves at the vulnerability of people smugglers. But first, workers in South Sudan's already sparsely staffed health centres and schools are reportedly being forcibly recruited by armed groups as the country's three-year civil war drags on. The UN's warned that the tactics have forced the closure of medical and educational institutions in the northern county of Guit. The dangers have also forced hundreds of aid workers to relocate and deepened a crisis in what's become one of the world's most dangerous war zones. Meanwhile, East African leaders say that they'll set up a forum to try and get the warring sides to revive collapsed peace talks. Meanwhile, fighting rages on. In the second part of our South Sudan series, our correspondents report from rebel-held Kajo Keji.
This is the new front in South Sudan's civil war. Determined to fight on, these rebel soldiers head to the front lines near the town of Kajo Keji in the southern region of Equatoria. Rebel leader Riek Machar may be in exile, but these men remain loyal to him. They reject current First Vice President Taban Dengai, who replaced Machar in July last year and who claims to lead the opposition. The government denies the presence of an organized rebel group in Equatoria, but the rebels claim to be gaining ground here.
From this mountain to where the enemies are is now 2 kilometers. Now they cannot move anymore because Juba Road, we have put more forces also there to protect our civilians.
The rebels' guerrilla tactics give them an edge in the vast rural areas, but they're unable to take towns or repel government offensives, like the attack from 2 weeks earlier. When the rebels retreated, government forces reportedly destroyed the village.
Our enemies come and they start fighting, so it's not getting our soldiers around, then it's broken the houses.
Such targeting of civilian infrastructure is central to the government's counterinsurgency strategy. The rebels often retreat after they engage the government, leaving civilians vulnerable to retaliatory attacks. Agnes' husband, daughter, and several neighbors were killed by government soldiers in a town called Mundikolog, shortly after the two sides clashed.
The soldiers were Dinka, but one spoke Arabic. He said that if they found the rebels, they would only leave the trees standing. Anything with blood, chickens or even goats, they would kill.
While civilians bear the brunt of the conflict, it's clear that neither side can secure a decisive military victory. Until a new peace process brings all the parties to the negotiating table, violence is likely to rage on.
That report by Samola Fontin there. Now, over half a dozen people were thought to have been trapped in the rubble of an 8-story building which collapsed in Nairobi. Rescuers managed to pull a baby girl, a 10-year-old boy and their mother from the debris on Tuesday. But the instability of the site has slowed emergency services progress. Police fired tear gas at residents who began throwing stones in their anger at the pace of rescue efforts. Many of the people living in the building did manage to escape as they noticed expanding cracks in the foundations. The collapse happened just months after a government order to demolish all condemned buildings in the country. 15 people were killed in 2015 after 8 buildings came down during that year. It's thought around 60% of constructions in the Kenyan capital are unfit for human habitation. Now, angry South African commuters have torched train carriages, looted shops and looted vehicles in Cape Town's main train station. The violence followed hours of delays to services and just further extended stoppages. The train operator, Metro Rail, has blamed the initial extended wait times on an electrical fault. It's acknowledged that travellers had legitimate concerns about the service, but has condemned the unrest. It says it's reviewing CCTV feeds to find those responsible for the damage. The former leader of South Africa's main opposition parties apologised for a tweet she posted in March in which she praised aspects of colonialism. Helen Zille has been removed from all party leadership roles. She says she now realises that her comments were insensitive to South Africans who suffered under colonial oppression. Nicolas Chamel tells us more.
The process took a long time. 3 months ago, Helen Zille posted her controversial tweet praising some aspects of colonialism. On Tuesday, she was removed from all party leadership roles in the DA opposition party.
I realise the wounds of history that my tweet and subsequent defence of it has opened. In particular, I recognise that my actions were insensitive to South Africans who suffered under colonial oppression. For this, I am genuinely sorry.
The DA is trying to shake off its image as a party for white South Africans. 2 years ago, Mmusi Maimane replaced Zille as the movement's first black leader.
Helen Zille's record in fighting apartheid and her contribution to the people of South Africa, to a democratic South Africa, speaks for itself. But there's absolutely no question that her tweet and subsequent defense of it did damage to race relations in our country and set us back as a party.
Zille has more than 1 million followers on Twitter. Before her tweet, she had been credited with increasing DA's popularity among black voters. She will remain leader of the Western Cape province. After her apology on Tuesday, President Jacob Zuma's ruling ANC party said she was still an unrepentant racist colonialist. Maimane said Zille's removal would now help DA focus on the 2019 general election.
Well, Sudan's stepped up border patrols along the frontier with Eritrea in response to the growing numbers of people from the neighbouring country trying to make it across illegally. Many cross on foot after walking for days or weeks. Most say they're trying to escape military conscription, but the risky journey can leave them vulnerable to exploitation by people smugglers.
In this camp in Sudan's northeastern Kassala state, nearly 30,000 migrants are awaiting their fate. Many have fled neighboring Eritrea, entering Sudan illegally on their way to Europe. And among them, some were abducted by Sudanese Bedouin Rashaida tribesmen after they crossed into the country.
After 5 days in captivity, we were rescued. We fled from Eritrea because we wanted freedom. But when we got here, we were captured by Rashaida.
The migrants were rescued by Sudanese security forces, who say dozens of Eritreans try to enter Sudan illegally every day, crossing on foot after walking for days or even weeks. Many flee to escape Eritrea's autocratic government, which enforces universal military conscription that can last decades.
The Eritrean military has its agents everywhere, and they can catch us and take us back. It's not safe for us to be here for long.
Sudan is a key transit point on the migrant route to Europe. From there, Eritreans travel to Libya or Egypt. Smugglers then cram them aboard rickety boats for perilous Mediterranean journeys. In a bid to curb the smuggling, Sudanese forces have stepped up their patrols along the 600-kilometer border with Eritrea.
The border with Eritrea is long and complicated. Sudan alone cannot guard it, even if it uses all its equipment. We need international help.
Experts say migrant smuggling has become a multi-billion-dollar business, with some migrants paying up to thousands of dollars to cross. Eritreans in Sudanese camps say they live in a constant state of fear. Many still dream of reaching Europe and dread being sent back home.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa for now. Thanks very much for watching. Do so again. Take care.
Join us here on France 24 on June the 18th for the results of this crucial parliamentary election here in France.
That's right, don't miss our debates and special programs to find out what the future holds for this country.
He blew away the mainstream parties in France's presidential vote, but it's this House that will determine how the country's new 39-year-old leader will govern.
Will Emmanuel Macron get an outright majority, or will he have to share power with the conservatives, the far right, or the far left?
So be sure to tune in for our special coverage here on June 18th.
On France 24 and France24.com.